Hey gang, Sally here. Hope you're having an amazing and fascinating day. I know I am. And we've got Kit back behind me, but he's being a backrest and not wanting to be up front lately. So, just is what it is. So, what do we have going on today? First of all, thank you so much for being here. And I think the first thing I want to share with you is that I have set a goal for my channel for this year, and it's going to be a tough one. So, I'm going to need your help getting it done. And I super appreciate all the help you give me all the time. My goal is to have 5,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. And that's a big goal because right now I'm at like 1,640 something. So, if you got something useful out of any of my videos, please share it on social media, share it with friends individually. Leave a comment down below, like, subscribe if you haven't already, do all the stuff. And if you super want to support me, you can also become a channel member. There's a link in the video description of every video with all kinds of things that you can do that will help support me in the channel. And except for becoming a channel member, nothing costs you anything extra. If you use my Amazon link, it's just as if you were using your own. And I think we're probably going to do another video that's just about all of those things that might be helpful for you, those of you especially who want to be helping me, because I really, really appreciate that. So what do we have today? We're going to do math. I know how much you guys like to do math, but I like to do it. So the math we're doing today is I'm going to share with you what I actually spent in 2024. And then I'm going to compare it to what it actually cost me to live in a house when I still had a house. As many of you know who've been with the channel for a while, I've been full-time on the road for over 3 years now, going on about 3.5 years. And last year I finally sold my house. So everything I own is with me in the RV all the time, and I love that feeling. I think that's absolutely amazing. And I had to kind of wait to do this comparison video because it was too much trouble to try and straighten out the differences between living in a house and living on the road full time. So we're going to roll the intro and get right into this. Thanks again so much for being here, and we'll see you on the other side. All right, let's get right into this. So I'm going to save the house cost reveal for the end, but we're going to start over here with looking at things that I've never seen anybody else really talk about, and I'm starting with subscriptions that I consider to be business related, okay? And so that's my Escapees mail service. Cost me about $225 a year. Bradford tax letter. This is an interesting thing. And I have used this company for, when I was a real estate broker, there was a town adjacent to ours that the Association of Realtors was doing, we called them lunch and learns. And it was supposed to be on how to be able to maximize tax savings. And I wasn't going to go because I thought I was already pretty good at maximizing tax savings. But it's like, what the hey? They give me lunch. It's $10 to get lunch in the seminar, so why not? So I drove down there, sat through the seminar, and I was surprised. They actually gave us about 50 minutes of content and about 10 minutes of a sales pitch. And I'm pretty immune to sales pitches because I'm actually a really good salesperson myself. But I in the 50 minutes of 50 minutes of content that they gave us, I learned three things that I had not known about taxes previously, and they saved me a lot of money. Dropbox. I think I'm going to be able to drop Dropbox this year. I have used it with all of my volunteer work, in addition to all of my business work for, geez, I think I started using Dropbox in 2009. And so I've been with them for a really long time, but I'm paying $120 a year for that. And I think I can drop Dropbox this year because I'm no longer in a position where I need to be able to share multiple files with multiple other people in a way that I feel is really secure. And I have much less need for being able to access all of my files no matter where I am. So I'm going to look at what my plan is, because Dropbox doesn't renew until September and I'm not going to get any rebate on canceling early. So what I'm going to look at doing is being able to remove as many files as I don't need on a regular basis anymore, which is most of them, from my hard drive, do a backup to the cloud and probably with iCloud, and or just put them onto another hard drive, probably two, because I want to make sure I got a backup to my backup, as my friend Deborah Dickinson would say. Um, and then I can save that $120 a year, which will be awesome. Zoom, if you haven't heard of Zoom by now, I don't know where you've been since 2020. I've been using Zoom or Zoom adjacent things. I used to use Ring Central before Zoom started becoming really popular. I pay $300 a year for Zoom. I could pay a lot less, but I actually have an enterprise account, which means that I can do webinars, I can do all kinds of stuff that the average free Zoom account cannot do. I'm going to stick with it for another year and see if that's still worth it to me to continue doing that. I think it probably is, but I may change my mind. And Zoom is contract free, and I pay monthly, so I can cancel anytime I decide to. I'm paying $360 a year to Apple for storage, and I'm doing that I because I like it. And I talk to a number of people that are frequently trying to get photos off of their phone and be able to get them transferred to a hard drive so that they can get them off their phone so they've got more space available on their phone. I'm sorry, storage is relatively cheap in the grand scheme of things. I prefer to have more storage. So at this point, I'm paying for 6 terabytes with Apple, and I'm going to keep doing it for the foreseeable future. But I do think I'm going to be able to get rid of Dropbox and save that 120 at least. I pay $20 to Google for storage because I never get rid of any emails, and part of that has just been, leftover business for me. I use on average, well, hundreds of email accounts, but I use about 6 different email accounts regularly. I have them all forwarded to Google so that I can handle all of my, to Gmail, so I can handle all of my email in the Gmail app from all of my email accounts. It's just easier than logging in and out of multiple different locations in order to be able to do that. Wondershare is the company that I use for editing my videos, including the one that you're going to be seeing right now. Canva, I use Canva for developing all kinds of things, logos, thumbnails, all kinds of stuff. And then there's, travel related. RV Life. RV Life Trip Wizard is a great app for being able to um, route wherever you're going. And I have depended on it heavily, heavily this year, this past like 6, 7 months, as I've been traveling all across the country in places where I'm usually not. So it's been really helpful for that. Road Pass. So RV Life Pro includes RV Life Trip Wizard. They've got a maintenance checklist. They've got some community tabs. They do blogging. They do um, RV Safe GPS, which I do use periodically, and that's about $60 a year. And again, I've got a discount code in the link below in the video description below if that's something you're interested in. Road Pass Pro, they were real popular for a few years, and pretty much all of the YouTubers that were promoting them have gotten away from them. I still like them, and I like them because it gives me Campendium Pro, it gives me Road Trippers Pro, and a few other things. Those are the two that I use primarily. That's another $60 a year. And is it possible that I might end up canceling one or both of those? Yeah, it is. And I might just take a year off from them because that's the other thing that I've learned. We're going to talk about that as we get into the personal subscription area. I use TubeBuddy for helping me develop keywords and so forth for my videos, and double checking to make sure that I've done all of the things that will get me the most exposure, which is how you're going to help me get to 5,000 subscribers this year. I'm a little nervous about having put that out there in public now. Let me know if you think I'm going to make it. And let me know if you got any ideas about what I can do to make it happen more easily. So that's the business subscriptions. Now, if we look at that amount, that's $1,646. That's a lot of money. I mean, it's actually a fairly substantial part of my budget. And I'm pointing this out. I'm doing this in detail because most of the YouTubers that I've seen that talk about their expenses, they don't really talk about it in this way. And I think subscriptions can be really sneaky. When I did this and I totaled it up and I realized how much I'm really spending on subscriptions every year, that just, you know, I don't know. It's a little bit of a shock to me. And it's part of what got me thinking about what can I get rid of. Personal subscriptions, also pretty pricey, $863 worth. So, and the biggest one, I could give up if I really needed to. I don't really need to. And part of the reason I'm showing you this in so much detail, guys, is everybody RVs differently, right? Everybody lives their life differently. And so if you're on a super, super tight budget, you're going to look at a lot of the stuff that I'm showing you and saying, there's no way in the world I'm going to pay for that. I get it. I get it. I'm not on as super tight a budget as many, many, many people are. Nor am I anywhere near on as loose a budget as I've seen a lot of these types of videos demonstrate. I mean, I have seen YouTubers who are spending more on their camping fees than I'm spending on my entire budget in a year. I kid you not. That's not me. So Amazon Prime, I'm dumping it this year. It expires in June. I'm not going to renew it. And I made that decision for a number of different reasons. One of them is it used to make sense to me, and I'm dumping it because Amazon Prime sold itself on guaranteed 2-day shipping. And now it's more like you're guaranteed you're going to get it sometime maybe, which I'm not happy about. And I've held on to it for this past year because I'm thinking, much of the time I'm trying to pick stuff up from Amazon lockers, but typically stuff to Amazon lockers gets delivered within about 2 days and maybe three. Um, so I'm gonna try not having Amazon Prime. I can always resubscribe to it at some point if I decide to do that, but that's $140 a year I'm gonna save. And then Audible, I have been subscribed to Audible for 10 years. And I finally looked it up. I've got a bunch of Audible books that I haven't actually listened to yet, and some that I'm willing to listen to again. I think I've got more than enough to get me through the next year without running out of things to listen to. I listen to Audible all the time when I'm driving and a lot of the time when I'm walking or hiking, just because it keeps me focused on that instead of paying attention to the fact that I'm tired of walking or hiking, so I get more exercise that way. So that's saving me $140 a year. And I put them up here because really it was in preparation for this video. And I was thinking about, what I really want to share with you guys, that I started thinking about this much more in depth. And I thought, no, I don't really need Amazon. I don't really need Audible. Now, I'm keeping my geocaching subscription, which I think I've had since 2009, no, 2006, I think even, might be older than that. It's 30 bucks a year. It's pretty minor in terms of what it costs. I do geocache periodically, so I'm going to keep it. Netflix cost me $198 a year. Kern County Museum, I might end up dropping this next year. I haven't decided yet. So the county that I used to live in, where my house was, is Kern County in California. And there is a reciprocal museum program that goes all over North America. One of them is called North America Reciprocal Museums, NARM. That was the first one that I found out about. And then there's Time Travelers, there's ATSC, and I think one other one that's all part of the package that I get with Kern County Museum. So if I have a membership to Kern County Museum that costs me $125 a year for that, it gives me access to all these other museums, many of them for free, all over the country. And so I usually find that if I use it, 4 or 5 times a year, I've got my money's worth out of it, and I usually use it much more often than that. So I'm going to keep it for at least another year. Sleep Cycle. This is funny. I've been using the paid Sleep Cycle app for more than 10 years. And my mentor taught me that anything, which is Pearson's Law, anything we can record and report, we can improve. And so I have recorded my sleep numbers for over 10 years, along with many other things. And what I finally decided toward the end of last year was, I pretty much know how I sleep at this point. I have done everything I can to improve my sleep quality. My sleep quality is generally pretty good. I run, like about 96% out of 100%. of sleep quality most of the time. I don't wake up in the middle of the night, except to have to get up and go right back to bed. I don't have insomnia, you know, all those things. So I'm dropping it. It's only 30 bucks. It's not a big deal, but it's also yet another way to simplify my life. This one's big. Ancestry. I'm spending $510 a year on Ancestry, which is like, I think, about the most expensive package that they offer. It's not only entertainment, but I have become fascinated by my family history. And so at this point, it's still worth it to me to spend that money. So all of my personal side subscriptions are another $863. And when we get to communications, I've got my regular cell phone, which I just made a huge change on. So my regular cell phone was costing me over $1,000. It was $91 and change a month. Just my cell phone was $1,100 a month. And sorry, $1,100 a year. And now it's going to be actually a little bit less than $395. I just changed cell phone service. So far, so good. Internet services. I use T-Mobile as my main internet source and Wi-Fi router, and that cost me $612 a year. Website hosting, I still maintain several different websites. That's $156 a year, and I buy it in 3-year increments. And now I'm spending about $40 on renewing domain names, which is way down from what it used to be 8-9 years ago. At one point I was paying for about 35 domain names every year. Yeah, because you know, I'd think of a domain name that I thought would be really cool, and I'd buy it. I have broken down my nomad life costs into vehicle costs and living costs associated with the vehicle, because they're two different things. So I pay $1,104 a year for insurance, and that is full-time insurance. And there are several differences between full-time insurance and part-time insurance. If you're going to be full-time, please get full-time insurance, and then when you get your policy, make sure it really is a full-time policy. I discovered that my previous policy on my previous rig, even though it was supposed to be a full-time policy, was not. That was not cool. So $1,104 a year for full-timers insurance. Last year was $2,847 in maintenance. And I think it's probably going to be about the same this year because I broke my awning arm. I got a problem with my gray tank. It's just maintenance. You know, things have to happen. I put in $600 for registration, but truthfully, I haven't paid for registration yet. I'm still trying to get all of that straightened out. And then in 2024, I spent $4,124 on fuel, which was actually less than I had budgeted. So I was pretty pleased with that. So total of $8,675 associated with just having this as a vehicle. And then associated with having the vehicle as a house, my utility cost is for propane. And to be fair, part of my fuel cost for gas is also a utility cost for the house because my generator runs on the same gas fuel that runs the engine. Does that make sense? Okay, so propane, I spent $379 last year on propane, which I think is actually less than I spent the previous year. I've learned how to do things a little bit differently, and there'll be a video about how to stay warm in cold weather coming up too. I've included my actual medical costs because I think this is an important thing for people to pay attention to if they're thinking about being part-time versus, you know, having a sticks and bricks. I did a couple of different videos on Medicare around October last year. I'll try and remember to put a link over here, I think it goes, if you want to check those out. So basic Medicare, Part A and Part B, is $2,200, $2,220 for 2025 because it went up to $185.10 a month, I think it is. So that's the base Medicare. That's Part A and Part B, but that does not get you full coverage. So what I had done previously was used an Advantage plan, and part of what I discovered as I was researching all of this after I sold my house, because I no longer qualified for my Advantage plan, is that, and I knew this to be true, I just hadn't really thought about it. My Advantage plan was only good for emergency care if I was not in my home region, and That would mean I might have to go back to my home region if I needed ongoing care. And it just, and, I was also subject to pre-approvals and all the other stuff, but it was a lot cheaper. So I decided this year to change my Medicare plan completely. And so now I'm using, my domicile state is Nevada. We're going to be talking about domiciles and stuff like that coming up in a video coming up soon. And so in Nevada, my Part D, which is drug coverage, is that the right number? That doesn't seem right. That can't be right. I think I made a math error. Yeah, I did. I made a big math error there. Okay, let's fix that. It's not $13 a month times 50, it's $13 a month times 12. All right, $156, not 650 or 660. And then my Part G, which is the Medigap supplement plan, is $1,860 a year. You can see it's almost as much as Part A and Part B combined. The deal with going with a Part G plan, though, is that I have basically no deductible for almost anything, including specialists. I don't need to get pre-approval for anything. I can see any doctor anywhere in the country that accepts Medicare. So it simplifies all of those things dramatically. Now, of course, there's still the issues of being able to get in to see a doctor, but theoretically, I can do whatever I need to. And I was really reluctant to do it because I'm perfectly healthy. I am getting over a cold right now, which is the first time I've had any kind of illness since 2013. And, I don't take any medications. I don't have any, systemic conditions, nothing like that. So I feel like I'm wasting some money, but it's also really, it can be difficult to get a Part G plan. So if you are under age 65 and you have not yet started Medicare and you want to be a nomad, think about Part G long and carefully. Please go watch my other videos that I did about this because it can have a big impact on your long-term ability to be able to get a Part G plan. Okay, food. Why am I telling you about my food? Because I'm giving you my overall spending, and then you can look at it and say, well, that's ridiculous. I wouldn't spend that much. Okay, good, good. But this is what I've spent, and I want to show you. Part of the reason I'm showing you this is that I want to be able to share the differences between this and what it was really like living in a house for me separately. So groceries, $2,960 last year. Now, groceries includes things that I would buy at the grocery store, which typically does not include things like paper towels and toilet paper and stuff like that. That all goes in household down here. But it includes things that I would buy at the grocery store, which is going to be primarily just food. Dining out, $944 last year. Other. It's a little bit embarrassing, but I'm gonna be upfront about it. This includes alcohol. This includes carbon dioxide cartridges for my soda stream. This includes, before I picked up my soda stream last year when I was putting my house on the market, this includes things like buying bubbly water and things like that, not strictly food. So this $2,960 is strictly food. This would be like this is what I need to eat in a year and drink water, basically. Does that make sense? So the total for all of that is $4,853, which is, 400 bucks a month, basically. A lot of money for one person, sorta. I mean, I could do it for less, and I know I could do it for less. And as you're going to see, this is less than it was when I lived in the sticks and bricks. It took me over this past year to finally learn how to not buy too much food. And when I say too much food, I mean more food than I can eat before it goes bad, because I was throwing a lot of food away and it just really bothered me. In miscellaneous expenses, we've got clothing expenses, $605, pet expenses, $430, which is mostly just dog food for him. And oh, and we do go to PetSmart every 4 to 6 weeks and he gets his nails trimmed because I can't do it. And I don't like him having long nails. And, to me, it's worth spending 20 bucks to do that. And then the household includes miscellaneous stuff like paper towels, toilet paper, wax paper, Ziploc bags, all of that kind of stuff that, um, you know, you end up using around the house. Camping fees. I did another whole video in my 2024 recap in which I talked about my camping fees, and I broke down what that looked like. I'll just flip over to that. This is kind of small to see, I think, but so I categorize the places that I stayed by Corps of Engineers parks, which are the ones that I prefer. Local parks, which might be state, might be like county or city or whatever, state campgrounds, and private campgrounds. And I spent a significant portion of the year last year exploring New Mexico, 134 nights in New Mexico state parks, 9 nights in Maryland state parks, um, and one private park in Florida, which accounted for a significant portion, 25%, of my entire spending on camping last year. So last year I spent $1,025. That one night in Florida was $250. Yeah. Um, and the rest of it was, all of the other parks combined. So I don't feel too bad about that. I am hoping I'm going to spend less than that this year because, I'd really prefer to spend less than that. And so if you look at this and you add up all of these categories, my total spending last year was $25,686. Now, I did a lot of driving. I was um, I was back and forth from um, Arizona to California several times, and then from Arizona into New Mexico, and then into Kansas, and so on and so forth. I think when I figured this out, it was like 28 states last year. Pretty phenomenal. Pretty phenomenal. All right, so let's look at the comparison though, because that's a lot of money. And I was actually a little bit surprised at how much money that was. So now let's compare it to what it was like to live in a house. Looking at the subscriptions, I didn't have Escapee's mail service. I used the UPS store, which was local to me, and it actually cost more than my Escapee's mail service, which is much better than the UPS store ever was. And everything else is basically the same. So instead of 1,646, it's almost $1,800 when I was living in the house. Personal subscriptions, however, when you add back in Amazon Prime and Audible, both of which I would have kept if I were going to continue living in the house, and I wasn't going to get rid of any of the rest of this, so 1,181 versus 863. Communications. My phone was even more expensive because not only did I have to have my cell phone, but I also had a landline. And I won't bore you with the explanation for why that is, but it was necessary. Internet was a little bit cheaper at $480. Website hosting was the same. I was still maintaining more domains, so that cost more. So, that's like $600 a year more than it is currently. And then my truck costs is the comparison to the RV vehicle costs. And I'm actually using 2021 figures here because that was the last time I was driving my truck on a regular basis. I went full time in 2021. So insurance was relatively the same, $1,051 a year. Maintenance was only $264 because my truck was still under warranty, including maintenance for the first 3 years, so I didn't have to pay for maintenance. Registration, however, was $830. And fuel, I spent $4,953 on fuel. Oh, and I had a loan, which cost me $7,800 a year. So almost $15,000 in truck expenses versus, $8,700 with much higher maintenance costs. So there's that. Now let's look at the house. Now, I want to point out right away, there is no mortgage here. You don't see a mortgage, you don't see rent. I owned my house outright. So I paid $5,475 for insurance because it's California and it's considered a high fire risk area, even though it really isn't. That was incredibly frustrating. About $3,000 annually for maintenance and including lawn service. I had reached the point that I could no longer maintain the entire property by myself. I had a half acre and it was, long story, it was hard to maintain. $3,156 in property taxes and $3,060 annually in utilities. That includes natural gas, water, and electricity. Okay. So my housing costs almost $15,000. Pretty substantial. And then, when we look at medical, my medical costs were actually lower because, if we were comparing apples to apples today, it would have been 2568 because I had a Medicare Advantage plan that only cost me $348 for the entire year, which included what's in these two numbers right here. So there's that. Food. Check this out. I was wantonly wasteful with food, and I didn't really realize how much. So my average grocery bill was $3,371 annually. I ate out a lot, which was about $27.85, and I was spending a lot more on alcohol and other extraneous stuff to the tune of like almost $1,600. This includes going out for drinks with people and stuff like that too. I'm not just sitting at home and drinking myself to death. Just saying. So yeah, but that's almost double, right? And then miscellaneous expenses, again, not quite, but almost double. I spent more on clothes, and I still don't spend a lot by most people's standards. Pet expense averaged $642 a year, except for the last year that my previous two dogs, when they passed, my pet expenses were like $3,500 because I tried really hard to save Moby. And not that I was doing heroic measures. We thought he had one thing wrong with him, and when she got in to do the surgery, found out that it was something else entirely, and it became expensive pretty quickly. But we didn't do heroic measures to save him because my whole motto is I never follow a good life with a bad death for my pets. That's my choice. I don't want to prolong their lives unnecessarily, um, just because I don't want to give them up. Entertainment, spend about $2,500 a year. Household expenses were almost $2,000 a year. And I didn't include camping fees because I think that's actually included in entertainment at that point because it wasn't like a thing. I was going camping, but it's like I'm going on vacation. So almost $51,000 annually living in a house, with many of those numbers coming from a couple of years ago because of COVID and the truck stuff, um, which would probably be higher now. And the cost of food is certainly higher now versus about $26,000. So it's almost double. Look at this. 25,686. So if you take this minus this, you get this. 52%, I'm spending 52% of what I was. So basically half. I'm pretty jazzed about that, quite frankly. So that's it. That's what it costs for 2024. Personally, I think Kit and I have a pretty wonderful life. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Can you do better? Do you do better? I think it would be not too difficult to spend less money than I do, but I'm also grateful that I don't spend more than I do. So, thanks so much for coming along. I truly appreciate it. Kit's looking around because our one camping neighbor here is out with their dogs and he wants to go out and play, even though it's drizzling, so I guess we're going to go get wet. Anyway, we will see you next time. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about this, and yeah, that's all for now.